And we are live. Hi, folks. I am here, ready to answer questions. We've got a couple in the Discord chat here. I'm just waiting to get the YouTube link so I can send that to folks here in Discord. And I'm going to also sit down because I've been standing up for a little bit. Yeah, so if you're new to Office Hours, this is the opportunity to ask me questions, not on YouTube. I ignore the live chat in there. If you want to ask me questions, then you'll come to Discord. That's kcd.im/Discord. And yeah, and you can ask me any questions that you'd like, and I do my best to answer as truthfully as truth is. I don't lie. So yeah, with that, anybody, we only have 2 folks here in the Zoom so far. Anybody have questions right now before I just jump over to the Discord? Yago, it looks like you are the first question anyway, so I'll just go and learn about your question. When is it okay to use effect as observable? Oh yeah, I remember reading this earlier. Yeah. So the normal way is to lift state up, as Bala mentioned here, which of course you know. But the problem is that you don't want the whole tree to re-render when an element of state changes that only one of those components cares about, or maybe a handful of those components care about. And so, you've observed that there's some sort of performance degradation when you do this, or something, which is really the only situation where that should matter, is when you've actually observed some performance problems. So yeah, and so lifting state up is not going to work. Use imperative handle is a mechanism to do this, as you mentioned also. I also don't like this. Yeah, and you suggest context seems like overkill. I would push against that just a little bit. Context can absolutely appropriately be used within just a handful of components together. So I wouldn't say that context is overkill for that sort of a situation. And given the choice between using context to solve this problem and a use effect to synchronize some React state or something, I would definitely go with the context solution between those 2 options. And then another thing to consider also is you could do some sort of use a library like Jotai or Recoil. If I'm not exactly sure what your problem is specifically, but it sounds like it might be those could be a good solution for you potentially. So let me see if I can get some more context.
The issue is exactly this. Like, I had a tab that changes way up in the component tree, and then I had like a list to select, like a list of users or something. And then if I lift state up, I'll be like re-rendering the whole tree just when I select a item, but the rest of the tree doesn't care about the selected item. So I would like just be, the selected tab doesn't change as often as like selecting a user or selecting a list item. So that was my question, but ended up being like a key would be the solution, because I was trying to like clean up the state. And then when the selected tab changes, I just changed the key on the list. So it cleaned everything inside. I didn't end up needing any like state changes at all.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad that you figured that out. That sounds like a pretty reasonable solution as well. Yeah, using key as like a reset mechanism. Looks like you had quite a conversation about this. Using key as a reset mechanism is a pretty, I wouldn't say that it's a standard practice, but it's a good one that not many people know about. So, oh my goodness, I missed this. You told me. I just didn't pay attention. Well, good. I was at least able to share my own thoughts. Okay, so Andrew is asking some opinions on this code. Ran into this pattern, don't really care for. Love to hear others' thoughts. The pattern is that a new context provider is initialized for each item being mapped over. It's been done to prevent prop drilling, but seems excessive, hard to debug. Yeah. Well, so at the end of the day, your experience with a pattern is what matters most. And if your experience with a given pattern is like really, it's confusing. Now, like you have to keep in mind that sometimes things are confusing. That doesn't mean that they're bad. That just means that it's unfamiliar. But if you understand what's going on, but it's still difficult, then that is a pretty good sign that it's maybe not the best pattern. But let me take a look really quick. That's interesting. So I understand what's going on. It's been done to prevent prop drilling. Hard to debug. I'm not sure I understand why it would be hard to debug. So maybe I'm missing something important there, but it seems like it shouldn't be any more difficult to debug than anything else. You got to keep in mind that context providers are kind of special in some ways, but they're pretty normal in other ways. And a lot of components use context providers in the inner workings of how they operate. So maybe it's odd looking at this and be like, wow, that's kind of weird that they're rendering a bunch of context providers. But if you were to do the same thing with like styled components or with a React router, well, that would be weird. But or maybe like a select from Reach UI or something like that. Each one of those is rendering. Well, okay, sorry, styled components; those are consumers. But yeah, like a Reach UI select or an accordion or something like that. Those are rendering providers. So there's nothing wrong inherently with rendering providers dynamically. That's totally acceptable. I've never done something like this. I don't often reach for context as a solution to prop drilling, but sometimes I do, and I don't see this as inherently a bad thing. I might encapsulate this in a separate component that's like, here's the user's stuff, and that the fact that it's using a provider is an implementation detail of that user's stuff or that user list item or something, so that the fact that it's a provider is not exposed to this code. But that would be the only thing I would say. Now, again, like I said at the beginning, your experience with it is all that matters. And I mean, after the user experience and everything, but like as far as if everything else is equal, it's your experience is what matters most. And if it's really confusing to you and you've decided, no, I understand what's going on, it's just kind of confusing or it's difficult to debug, then maybe fine. You could compare what this same implement or the same feature sans the confusing stuff and compare those two and say, well, yeah, this one's a lot easier to understand, so we're going to refactor this to something else, like prop drilling or something. The challenge is when you're on a team and people have different opinions on what is confusing. But I wouldn't just say nix to this just out of the gate. There would have to be something more to make it difficult for me. Okay, sweet, good question. Created a custom hook for a timer. Timers are fun. The problem I'm facing with this one is whenever I reset the timer with reset, it pauses for a moment and executes the current previous timer value rather than 0. If the current timer is 10, then I reset it at that moment. Then again, it starts with 11. Okay, so it sounds like, here, let me just look at it. Well, right here, you're not returning that, so that might be it. Without like a runnable example, you really should, people need to give me runnable examples of what they're trying to ask, because that could have just been a typo and now their question won't be answered. So, but from the look of it, you're not returning your cleanup function from use effect. It's defined but not returned. And that's a new sentence. There we go. So yeah, good luck. Hopefully that was the problem. But that would cause this the issue that you described. So okay, made a state management lib, Iago. Cool. Let's take a look. Sorry, I was kind of tired today. So let me just make sure I get all the context that I need. Yeah, just looking for input. So we've got our app. Here's the lib. You create a store. You can create namespaced stores. Okay. And then this can happen outside of React, which is kind of neat. Increment. Okay, cool. And then use slice of store. That's kind of cool. You pass the store itself and you say the slice that you care about. I'm assuming under the hood that's going to do some sort of pub sub thing. And you've got a bunch of use stores here, which presumably will also do some sort of pub sub thing with use effect. So let's take a look at this. Make store, you've got a map of stores. This is all outside of React stuff. You've got your value, there's your sub, and update. Hold on a second. So it looks like you have the ability to call subscribe on the store, but users typically won't be subscribing to the store is what it looks like. That's where your hook comes in. Update is also the same, I'm guessing. Okay, so you get update from those calls, so that makes sense. Yeah, store name and new value. But yeah, all we care about is create to create new stores. And then internally, you're going to use these other methods on the store. Okay, cool. So use store is the simple one. We've got use state. We're going to initialize it with the store's value. And so each individual component is going to have its own management of state by itself rather than, yeah, and that makes sense. So then we've got our, and so this is why you don't need to have a context provider, because normally or often you'll have two things that need to reference some state, and so you lift state up, and if it's too far, maybe you'll put a context provider or something. And so then you're storing that state in one place in React. With your solution, you are storing that outside of React, and then every component that needs to reference that state will just store a copy of that state with React. Now, it's actually technically not a copy because React just takes that object or whatever it is that you give it when you update it and puts it in that spot in memory. So they're going to be just a bunch of pointers from the component instance to that object that's in your store. So you don't need to worry about any performance problems like that or anything. Let me bump this up a little bit. Okay, cool. So we've got our store state and set store state. We have our use effect to do our pub sub, music and dance. Let me sneeze. Excuse me. And I said music and dance. I meant song and dance. But anyway, yeah, so the pretty standard stuff. And then you've got your updater, which is exposing the update function directly from the store, which is great. No need to make an additional closure or anything like that. Now this store update, hold on a second. When I create a store, yeah, that update calls that update. Yep, that makes sense. Okay, cool. So yeah, and then use slice of store allows you to just care about a specific portion, which means that when some state changes, you come around and you're going to call this subscription anytime any state changes or anytime any part of that state changes, but you will only trigger a re-render when the part of the state changes that you care about, which is a nice benefit. So you could store all of your state in this one giant object, and anytime anything changes, then all of your subscriptions are going to get called, but you're not going to trigger a re-render for everything. And so that's nice. And update slice. Yeah, it's going to do something fancy there just because you only have a slice of the state, which makes sense. Yeah, and then that'll trigger updates for everybody else who cares about that state. Yeah, so this looks fine. The only change that you might consider, and you can ignore this, but one thing that kind of occurred to me as we were kind of going through this is right here, I would like to be able to say, provide a function. That's the all state. Are you in good hands? All state color. And then over here, I can say type of key is a function. Then we'll say key with the store value. Otherwise, it'll be store value at the key. And then you'll need to do the same thing here. So yeah, basically yeah, it'd be like slice. Yeah, something like that. That would be the only addition. I guess I can fork this, save that, and give that to you if that's at all interesting to you. That way I can have a lot more control. In fact, I could say I care about the color and the other thing, blah, or whatever. So I can just return all of the parts of state. The problem with that is actually it will bust your object.isCheck, which would be a bummer. So I mean, there's a way that you could do a comparison. Then like there are a couple ways you could do this. You can have another argument that does the comparison, which I guess would be here. And so this would return true or false. Say, hey, I want to trigger a re-render. Not cool, probably, but I mean, sometimes you do those things for optimizations. Here, let me back all this up because that is not currently supported. Yeah, or you could do like a deep equality, which has got some performance implications that you probably want to consider. Or just like don't do this feature. That also could work pretty well. And then of course this would need to change too. So yeah, maybe doing that function form is probably not good. Yeah, function form probably wouldn't be good. And instead you just do a couple slices. So I say I need the color and I need this other thing, and you just do use slice of store, and that would probably work better. So I'm not even going to give this to you. Don't bother. Yours is great. Yeah, sorry, it wasn't very helpful.
No, that's good. I just wanted to see if like there's anything that you might change, because I ended up just doing this because I never did anything with like subscriptions, and ended up doing something for just like JavaScript. I just ended up making the make store first. I'm like, this is pretty neat. I probably can make like a hook out of this that can subscribe to only like what I need, and ended up working nicely because I only re-render stuff whenever the subscribe part of the state changes.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I always thought it was pretty interesting, so it was good to like do it as an exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to, I'm sure that there are other libraries that are similar, but there's one event emitter that I really like called MIT that you might be able to use. It's very small, and it, yeah, it just takes care of a lot of the pub sub boilerplate that you might look into. Yours was fine, but yeah, it'd be something to look into. But yeah, it looked fine, and it could potentially solve some performance problems with stuff that is subscribed to too much. Boy, I feel like there was. So this is one area that I haven't delved in too deeply, and I just know that this is. I've seen libraries that do this before, and there's a reason that libraries like Recoil and Jotai exist, because it's not always quite this simple. But I just don't have an example to illustrate why it's not always quite this simple.
Yeah, thank you for the feedback.
Yeah, sure. Good luck. Okay, so Lai is wondering, we got a huge page, 4 modals, tons of steps, lots of stuff happening in the main component. Want to separate the logic in different contexts. Yeah, so I see people building modals in particular, and automatically assuming that they need to have some sort of modal manager context or something. This is not the case. It is not. I mean, sometimes it can be useful, but like, it's not as difficult as you might think. So there's Reach UI has a really good modal, or dialogue is what it's called, that I would suggest giving a look at first. It's great. But you could use this with whatever you're trying to do. So basically, you would just set the is open to whether or not the particular dialog should be open. So if only one of them can be open at once, or like you've got a wizard and it's like one then the other, then this is where XState would probably come in really handy, actually. So I would suggest giving XState a solid look as well. Because yeah, it's this sounds like a state machine problem that you're trying to solve, and XState is really kind of it's built for that, to solve those kinds of problems. Yeah, as far as like whether to put that logic into context, I wouldn't just put it in the context because it's complex logic or anything. You can put all of that logic inside of a hook if you want to separate it out of the main component. Yeah, so I wouldn't put it into context for that reason. There might be other reasons you want it in context. But yeah, for just separating out logic, I would just use a hook. Yeah, so use a hook, XState, and Reach UI dialog. Good luck. Wahid, you're here in the video, so or in the Zoom, so you can correct my pronunciation of your name. If I said it wrong, sorry. Try my best. Chance to implement a prompt from React Router DOM. With prompt. I'm not sure. So the answer is no, clearly.
Hi, Kent. Can you hear
Hi.
me?
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, I am using this prompt, and I could solve the issue, but one of the issue that I have is in Internet Explorer 11. That's the project requirement we need to, yeah. And we need to, when the user wants to change the page, want to show a confirmation message if the user wants to change the page.
Yeah.
just wanted to check with you if you had a chance to look at it.
Yeah, so I've never used this component before, but I'm looking at the source code right now, and I don't really see anything in here that tells me this shouldn't work in IE. Let me just see really quick. Self-release. Context history block. Oh, that's interesting. So I don't know what this is. History block. I'd like to remove history block. Yeah. This is interesting. Yeah, so it looks like you're probably better off not using this at all. Although it was closed eventually. I wonder. Looks like they are going to keep it. Just change the API potentially. And I suppose they already did, since it should be in V5. So yeah, you're probably okay to use it. Now, whether it's working in IE, I'm not sure what it would be doing to yeah. Let me find out. We've got npm history. See if we can figure out how this thing works. Block. Oh, are these type definitions? Oh, okay. Huh, that's weird. I'm just curious now. Block. Oh, there it was. It registers it before, or whatever, before unload. Huh, that's interesting. Fascinating. Okay, so we've got, okay, so we grab the method on mount. Okay, so when the user is going to try and navigate away, this will mount. We call block with the message. And if the message changes, then we release and then we update it. And then when this unmounts, we will release it and allow the user to proceed on their way. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm guessing, like, can you give me a little more information on what's not working specifically? Because I'm not seeing anything in particular that would lead me to think that this shouldn't work. Are you still there?
Sorry, I was talking on mute.
Yeah.
Can you please open back the closed tab that you have opened from the history? Yes, yeah. Can I have this in the chat? And
Yeah,
I
sure.
will load this. And
I don't think you should have to use this though, because I think that's what this prompt component is doing. Yeah, so you want to render this when the user is going to do something that or navigate away.
Yeah.
So what is happening in IE? Does it just not show up?
In IE, it is a weird message that the function is not defined from, and when I debugged and researched, that it's not calling this function from the main route component, which is app or index.js. And if I put this in the route, the main route, it's calling, but in the browser router in version 5.2, they fixed this issue. But because we are using also this history package, there is a conflict. If we want to use browser router, we cannot pass history package as a props to work with the navigations and history. That's like if we want to use the latest version of React Router DOM, we cannot use history package.
Well, I believe you can. You just need to make sure that you're not using version 5. I believe that's the case. So version 5 of the history package works with React Router version 6, and version 4 works with React Router version 5, which is kind of confusing, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. If we go to the React Router DOM and package.json, the history. Yeah, so they're on version 4.9. So if you install it yourself, you need to make sure that you're using the same version that they are.
Okay, I will try.
Yeah. Good luck. Sorry, I can't be super helpful, but hopefully it was a little bit helpful.
No, it was helpful. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Good luck. Mo, welcome again. Hello. If I'm planning on adding React Native to testing JavaScript, probably never. That will probably never happen. I don't plan on ever doing React Native myself. Like I never plan on working with React Native. Not because I think it's stupid or anything, just because I don't do native. Native just doesn't excite me. It's not interesting. I like the web. So yeah, so that's very unlikely. If I'm not building something, I'm not going to teach it. So yeah, in answer to your question, that's a no. Okay, I've reached the end of Discord. Any last questions? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody type or anything, so we're going to wrap up. This was fun. Thanks for hanging out. And hope you all have a stellar day, rest of your day. And yeah, I'm still planning on showing up on Monday, so come and hang out. It's a good time. Thanks, everybody. Hope you are awesome to each other, and